What I learned from working with parents and children in my reading programme this week. Hi everyone, my name is Jo and I'm going to share with you 3 things I've learned from working with parents and children in my reading programme this week. And I'm literally going to read from my notes so I can give you the maximum support as possible. So watch until the end because I do give you a tip on how you can make reading easier tonight. So why am I doing this then? Well, because as a primary school teacher of 15 years, I just get asked the same questions over and over again. And instead of me just writing down my notes and sharing it with a few thousand parents I'm in contact with, I thought I'd just share it with many thousands of parents who can watch the video, and I'm sure it'll be beneficial to you. So this week, I will leave the timings for each tip in the description as well for each tip, as some parents have asked me to do that. So the first thing I want to share with you is a trick when learning a new sound or a new word. So for example, if you have been practicing the tricky word the, what you can do is point it out in your storybook when you're reading with your child. So this could be a fun challenge. You can say who can find the most there's in the story. And then that gives us relevance as well to why we learned that word. So children can see a purpose for their learning. Or if you have been practicing the sounds, for example, you can find all the sounds. And you can also point out the sounds outside in the environment or on food packets. So that gives them relevance for learning, and therefore they will probably pick it up more and retain that information. And this is what we call incidental learning. So we do it naturally in everyday life, and there's lots of opportunities for us to do this. And it's the best way because we all know that if children think that you are trying to get them to learn, they really don't want to. They want to make it fun. And so that's one way of doing it. So, the next thing I wanted to talk to you about is this week in one of my classes, we were learning the air sound. So, when we read hair and fair, the children know what those words mean. But when we came to the word lair, for example, we discussed and talked about a lion's lair. So, what I want us to know is that we don't have to explain every word because that can get tedious for children, but it's being aware and not assuming that every word that you're going to teach them is something that they know, the vocabulary that they know. Especially working with children with English as an additional language, we do need to be aware of that. So, explaining words builds vocabulary and gives children a context then for their learning, which is important. So, the next thing I wanted to share with you is there is a common word that all children tend to spell wrong sometimes, and the word is went. So, when sharing news in a class or talking about the weekend, I always write on the board I went, so children can start to see how the word is written, and then this reinforces the learning again, incidentally. And what you can do is if children write went like n and miss off the t, or another spelling is wet, that's a common mistake. We can ask them to read it back and see if they can spot any of their own mistakes first, or you can write it and ask them, does this look right? And they like to be teachers, as we know, so they will probably tell you you are wrong. And that's exactly what I did in class this week. And children, they love to be teachers and they enjoyed correcting my mistakes. So that's another good way of practicing vocabulary. So I did say that I'd tell you a tip for tonight. When you're reading with your child. So if your child starts guessing words, try this instead. So a simple blending routine I use is called robot talk. So if you want to make the word sun, for example, you can pretend to be a robot and say s, sun. Try it tonight because it really works. And thanks for watching my video, everybody. And I will see you all again next week for some more tips. Bye.